viewers, welcome to Totally Fucked Up Friday the 13th. Unlucky for some. In fact, it has been a bit of an unlucky week for some. Specifically, virtually everyone I've talked about in the last week or so has had a really bad week. We started with local Australian politics. Former Health Minister Sussan, who I mentioned being in a bit of shit for questionable travel expenses, has full-on resigned as a minister. Not leaving the parliament, but resigned as a minister, which means a lot of money, actually. And it's just like, when politicians do this, it's mind-blowing. It's like something blows up in their face, and they go, I think I can get away with this. I think I'll get away with this. They fucking know they're wrong, but they just go, oh no, I think I'll get away with this. And at first, she was like, I didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing to even answer. Just because I did all this really sus travel, not once, not twice, but an enormous number of times, I think I'll get away with it because I feel entitled to this. We call it parliamentary entitlements after all. Why am I not entitled to it? And then the pressure mounts and it's like, oh, you were tearing the government apart. We have to have an inquiry. Step aside for a bit. And it's like, okay, I'll step aside, but I'm sure I'm going to be cleared. You're not, you're really not. And it's only a couple of days after stepping aside, they've clearly looked at how fucked her travel expenses are and go, you are screwed, you are gone. There is no way back from this. It's all over for you. And so she's resigned as a minister, which really hurts the Prime Minister, who was protecting her. Oh, and I don't think I mentioned last time I talked about her. The guy who's been put in to replace her, this is someone who's been turfed because of questionable, if not illegal, practices to do with money. She's been replaced by a guy called Arthur Sinodinos, who's been directly linked to corrupt behaviour in New South Wales with developers giving questionable, if not outright illegal payments to the state Liberal Party, who then went on to, surprise, surprise, approve developments from these developers. Now, Sinodinos hasn't even been charged with anything wrong. He just reeks of wrong. So to replace someone who's under a cloud of wrong with someone who was already under a cloud of wrong is pretty goddamn bizarre, quite honestly. But the government's not the only part of Australian politics having a bad week. One Nation, who I've only ever mentioned to mention how disgusting and vile they and their supporters are, I mentioned them recently having to turf two potential candidates. Pauline Hanson decided she didn't like their homophobic comments. Since then, she protected another potential candidate who did say some things about the gays are wrecking families, but Pauline reckons that's not homophobic. But now there's yet another one, and it's been found out that he's published stuff on his blog. It's very common for people in One Nation to be conspiracy theorists, as in to be completely mentally unbalanced. Talked about Malcolm Roberts, who's a climate change denier, says science isn't real and just makes up ridiculous shit that he says is. Then there's the dude in Western Australia who's now has been declared bankrupt, so he's lost his Senate seat. He's just busy saying the entire government's illegitimate and they're not the real government and only the Queen can say things. Basically, it seems as if he's going for an insanity defence, which doesn't actually apply in a financial situation. So maybe it's not a defence and maybe he is just that much off with the pixies. But now this latest guy, he's been found to be a conspiracy theorist. He's spouted that the famous photo of the refugee kid who drowned, whose body washed up on the beach, that was fake, okay? That was fake. Oh, and the Port Arthur massacre in Australia, that was fake. Designed to, take away everyone's guns. It's fake. It's conspiracies. It's just that sort of ridiculous bullshit. Okay, same thing about that kid who drowned. That's cruel and heartless. But this is, I think, about the lowest of the low. And I see this in the US. Sandy Hook truthers. It's a conspiracy. They didn't really murder all those kids. No, that was a hoax. And saying the Port Arthur massacres, I hope, is so disgusting to the people who lost family. It's just reprehensible, worthless scum. And here's a big surprise. This worthless, reprehensible scum is going, oh, someone else put that on my blog. I don't even believe that. I don't even know what it's about. So he's not just a conspiracy spouting idiot. He's a gutless, spineless freak as well. I mean, it's really weird. It's almost as if you set up a party based on racism, hate, stupidity, bigotry, ignorance. It's almost as if you set up a party like that, you attract fucking idiots and worthless scum fucks. I mean, it's crazy, but it seems like that is what's actually happening, that because One Nation is for fucking scum fucks, when they get people together, they can't hold together and their scum fuck nature comes out and everyone goes, wow, that's really interesting how a significant number of people who choose to cleave to One Nation are fucking vermin. Fuck anyone who defends that party. Fuck anyone who defends Pauline Hanson. Fuck anyone who pretends that isn't all about racism, bigotry, and ignorance. Fuck all of you. I refuse to fucking countenance that bullshit. Oh, we should open a dialogue. Fuck it. Drop your bullshit, then we'll talk. But as long as you're a lying, bigoted scumfuck, you can fuck off. Okay? Simple as that. I think I want to round out with the other person having a bad week. One Donald Trump. I mean, I had a good laugh about the water sports, the golden shower story. And as I said in that video, if he happened to be indulged in whatever sexual peccadillos, or even in the case of this story, wasn't actually a sexual peccadillo, he thought he was humiliating the Obamas because he's a fucking idiot child, that is not important. That shouldn't preclude him from being president. It's the fact that there is a very compelling case that the Russians have spent years compiling incriminating stuff on him and getting leverage on him. See, a lot of people rush out and go, oh, BuzzFeed, they were so irresponsible to print that. It's like, oh, but it's not verified yet. It's like, well, you know what? What is, after the initial hysteria, what people who know what's going on said, well, the guy who compiled it, who's now gone into hiding because he was identified and he is quite worried his life's under threat, either from the Russians or from Trump supporters or both. He is regarded as a credible source with good contacts. Oh, and the whole, oh, the golden showers, that's not real, well, that's not a big deal. That is not regarded as being the only leverage the Russians have to incriminate and blackmail Trump and his cronies. There is now a growing body of evidence that it is actually more likely than not that Trump and or his supporters have been cornered by Russians, and the Russians do have blackmail material on them. Now, who knows? Maybe it'll come to nothing. Nothing's proven yet, for sure, but this much smoke without fire would be very unusual. I mean, it's mind-blowing. I have no idea how this is going to play out, but it's almost like virtually every single day with Trump, something happens, he says something, something comes to light, it's like, wow, this shit has never happened before. Literally, it's never happened. What the fuck is going on? This is not a variation of business as usual. This is through the looking glass. We're off on some bad acid trip, and it's impossible to tell what's real and what isn't. The story about there being incriminating, like, sex tapes on Trump, and people going, well, BuzzFeed were just irresponsible for doing that. You can't trust them. And Trump threatening them none too subtly, and then acting like a complete fucking tool at his press conference and refusing to let CNN ask him a question because they're fake news. You know, that's just disgusting and reprehensible and a debasement of the office of the president, even though he's the president-elect, the POTUS, which he will never live down, ever, and I love that so much. Even if this story was proven to be conclusively false, and I don't know how you would do that, there's only a lack of evidence, not an absolute disapproval of it. But even if there was, He will be POTUS forever, and I find that absolutely fantastic. I mean, until something worse comes out, which, you know, with Trump, a day, a week, a month, who knows? But if you don't think something's worse is going to come out, you're not paying attention. But the whole thing with saying, oh, BuzzFeed, they're not credible, are they? It reminds me of a couple of election cycles ago when a presidential hopeful, John Edwards, was accused by the National Enquirer of having fathered a child with a mistress while his wife was getting cancer treatment. I mean, like, that's an outrageous story, right? And no media outlet would touch it. Everyone had someone approach them, say, oh, this is a true story. We've got pictures of John Edwards visiting his mistress and the baby. And no one would touch it. But the National Enquirer is a scandal rag, and they went, yeah, we'll run it. What the hell? You know, we run crazy shit all the time. And it was true. It was true. The lying gossip mag ran this outrageous story, and it was true. Proving the old adage that even a stopped clock is right twice a day. I still would not use a stopped clock as a timepiece because it's useless, but, you know, twice a day it's telling you the time. You just don't know when that is. So when you indulge in gossip and innuendo, which, to be fair, BuzzFeed is full of, you never know when any of it's true. But really sober analysis from people like the BBC is saying, this dossier, it has a lot of credibility. It's not conclusive. There's no proof, but the source has credibility. And honestly, you look at it and go, this is not even surprising. Saying that Trump has been compromised by the Russians, when you see his behavior with praising Putin and every other ridiculous thing he said about Russia, it doesn't even sound far-fetched. I don't know how long this is going to go on. I don't know how long Trump is going to survive. I mean, it would be fucking hilarious if he went down in flames before the inauguration. I don't think that's going to happen, but I've ceased to try and predict what's going to happen. Trump has fractured the nature of reality, not in a good way. And something could come to light tomorrow. He could say something different tomorrow. He could do something different tomorrow that tears everything as crazy as it's been up to this point. He could easily make it worse. Something worse could come out with no warning whatsoever. Because this is the world we live in now, people. The person who will soon officially be in charge of the world's most powerful military and nuclear arsenal has all the stability of a 5-year-old who's been spoiled from birth and is now on too much red cordial.